Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. My name is Kyle, and as always, I could not call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who was alive when tennis was played with carved-out dinosaur bones, my dad, Tim.
Never was played with dinosaur bones. It was played with wood and cat gut, which personally I can't think of a better use for a cat.
Well, that's because you can't be around them without dying, so...
I know, cats all love me, but they make me so sick.
I've never been around a cat that hasn't bit me. I'm not even making that up. Even people that say, oh, my cat's so nice. Nope, they all bite me. I don't know what it is about me, but...
they can tell you don't like them.
That's true. I am not a cat fan.
So, my question for you to start, did you watch any of the Queen's 70th Jubilee, or Platinum Jubilee?
You know, as much as I am obsessed with the royal family, I think I missed that one.
Well, I had to watch because, we're in line.
Sure we are.
Like, if a large city would be taken out, we might be
more than that, but all right, continue.
Yeah. Anyways, it was interesting. Yeah, I've always liked the royal family and the history of it. I'm a history geek probably, but just the Windsors.
I mean, you were there for most of it, so
I wasn't.
It's understandable that you remember it. It's more memories than you reading.
I didn't see Henry VIII kill any of his wives.
Oh, you were out of town.
There are no words.
Hey, at least you aren't a redhead anymore. So you have that. You have a soul now.
No, I am still. There's still red in there someplace. Most of it's gone gray, but
I'll never forget my favorite memory with us of all time is when you officially went from red to white, and I just looked at you as a kid and was like, "Hey, Dad, your hair's all white. How does it feel to finally have a soul?" And you paused and just went, "Good." And then walked away. And that was the end of it. And I was like, all right, that is officially a core memory forever.
I learned not to grab the stuff and use it for conditioner or shampoo or whatever because...
Yeah. Oh, you mean when you tried to dye your hair blonde and it just bleached your hair permanently? I remember that phase.
It was awful.
I remember the midlife crisis when you're like, hey, I should be blonde now, a blonde surfer guy for no reason, and your hair never came back.
It's the same stuff your mom used.
Yeah.
You just grabbed it. And used it, and
Lady
then all of a
stuff.
sudden, I didn't know. Anyways, we're not here to talk about any of former mistakes I may have made in those areas.
That's fine. 40-year-olds wanting to go blonde is always a fun topic that people enjoy. I'm sure a lot of our people either relate or have dads they've seen that have done it. You never had to do the wig phase. You never got the fancy sports car. You dyed your hair blonde.
I wanted one.
You did want one, but you were good.
I bought your mom one.
You did. Well, that wasn't a sports car. It was
her dream car.
It was a Volkswagen
Cabriolet convertible that saved our lives.
Yeah, because you got in that bad car accident in that thing.
When I turned right in front of us, we T-boned them, and if it wasn't for that Volkswagen having an extra bar because it was designed by BMW or Mercedes or whatever, we wouldn't have walked away.
German engineering, man.
When the cop who's right behind you comes up and goes, I was calling for body bags.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I remember you coming home from that. I remember we were at Grandma's house staying, and all of a sudden you guys show up like 3 days early. And I was like, what? We're in a different car. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? You're supposed to be in Vermont.
You looked at us and said, what happened? Did you get in an accident? I mean, wasn't the reaction I was expecting. I didn't think you'd notice it, but yeah, that was a long few days.
I bet. But we do have some things happening in sports. Like you said, we're here to talk about sports. And I wanted to start the conversation with something I find interesting, and it's focused around tennis. So you and I obviously love tennis. You were a tennis coach and a tennis pro at times in your life. I played poorly in high school, but have always loved the game. And Rafa Nadal wins his 14th French title, his 22nd overall to be 2 ahead of Federer and Djokovic. My question is this a sign of greatness that we'll never see again of 3 individuals, or is this a sign of the lack of competition that is coming through the ranks of tennis? Because these guys are in their late 30s at this point, still winning Grand Slams, and we've never seen that on the men's side before.
No, people didn't usually last that long. I think it's the latter. I mean, Rafa Nadal. Would I have loved to have seen Rafa Nadal play Bjorn Borg at their peaks with equivalent equipment? Yeah, I think it would have been one of the greatest matches of all time. I don't know if Rafa wins that match or not. There's nobody who can touch him on clay. He owns it.
He does. Well, he grew up on clay.
He did. He was, he's a Spaniard and they played a lot on clay. I think the best all around player of the three of them, maybe Djokovic. Federer could play. I love Federer because he was the only one of them that would really serve and volley a lot.
Right.
The game has just been destroyed by technology. Rafa just sits back and just pounds the ball. There's no strategy. I'm going to hit the ball harder and move you around a little bit. Nobody comes to the net anymore.
Well, you can't.
No, you can't.
I mean, these forehands are coming at 120 miles per hour.
Or more.
You can't come to the net. I agree with you. The game has been ruined by technology, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like golf where you can change the ball or even without doing anything to the equipment, you can make the fairways thinner, make the courses longer. Tennis is the court is what it is. I mean, you can't change the dimensions of it.
The only thing you can do is roll back the size of the rackets. So you can't use 110 square inches like the Prince rackets. The thing that is saddest to me above everything else is when I watch Wimbledon, it used to be at the end of the fortnight, the grass would be worn up around the net and at the tee line where people would stop. And now the only place that's worn is at the baseline, and it's destroyed the game.
It's definitely a different game. It's not entertaining to watch.
Well, and that's evidenced by nobody really plays it on a recreation basis. Pickleball is now bigger than tennis, I'd argue. And there's personalities in the game, but there's no Americans playing.
There's no Americans coming up.
It's sad what's happened to it. And it was completely predictable and completely avoidable. I mean, when they first came out with aluminum rackets and then the first graphite rackets, I think my first graphite racket was a Kennex Black Ace, 98 square inches. For an average player and amateur players, let them use whatever racket they want. If they want to use 125 square inches, knock yourself out. But pros, I think they should roll back the equipment, roll back the width of the tennis racket, and roll back the size. So they can't use anything bigger than maybe 95 square inches.
You have to find a way where people aren't just pounding the ball at each other. I mean, there's no reason for every single player in the men's circuit to have a 150 mile per hour serve. It's just, it shouldn't exist so easily. I mean, we saw, why am I blanking on his name? Won the U.S. Open. Not Andy Murray, Andy Roddick. Who had almost a 200 mile per hour serve. He was a freak of nature, right? That was his.
I think it was 150 plus. I don't think he got the 2, but yeah, it was a
whatever. I'm exaggerating. Let me exaggerate.
Okay,
he had one of the most powerful serves we've ever seen. You shouldn't see that from every player, though. That was very unique to him at that time, and it's definitely changed. And you can change it just for the pros. I mean, baseball does it. College, high school, amateur, they all use metal bats, aluminum bats. However, in the pros, you got to use a wood bat. Why?
There's a reason.
Yeah, because you'd kill somebody.
Correct. Even going back to Reggie Jackson days, he actually used an aluminum bat just as a test, and he hit one ball and handed it back and said, "I will kill somebody. I can't do it.
Too big, too strong."
Yeah.
And these guys are already hitting the ball 500 feet. Can you imagine if they had an aluminum bat?
Oh my God. The longest recorded, it was funny you bring that up, the longest recorded home run, so-called home run, was back before they could do all the measurements they do now, was Mickey Mantle legendarily hit one 643 feet. Still, if you believe that it was that far, and they know where it landed, so I'm going to go with that.
Right.
You'll never see one of those again.
No.
So, I mean, it's just...
there's been a couple.
Yes, we've seen a couple of them. But, tennis is the one sport that has truly been lost as a sport for the populace because of technology.
Yeah.
And I do think they can bring it back, and if the heads of the tennis associations really wanted to do it and have the guts, it would take a gutsy call to do it.
It would.
But shrink the racket.
Yep.
Restrict the materials you can use to a certain extent.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, tennis becomes what it was. And then you can bring in the personalities and you'll see people serving volleying again. And then tennis can explode again like it
Right.
did in the 70s when I grew up watching it.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a lot more people get engaged in the sport. You're going to hurt some of the people that are there now because they'll have to go back. That's how they've learned how to play. But it's you got to look forward to the next generation of tennis players and make that change.
My favorite story is when Djokovic was having some struggles.
Yeah, he went back.
He played with a wood racket for a month. And
that's how you taught me how to play. I was having a really hard time with tennis. Tennis was not my sport growing up. I struggled with it at first and got a lot better. And the big reason is you handed me a wood racket and I wasn't allowed to play with anything else.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I was seeing, okay, here's where I'm missing. Because with my big, I had the Prince 03, right? Mm-hmm. And that thing was forgiving as forgiving can be. And so I'd miss a shot, but I wouldn't feel it. On the wood racket, you're hitting the frame if you miss. I mean, that sweet spot's the size of a spoon. And it made me a better tennis player.
I still think it's the best way to teach kids and is to just have them learn with a wood racket because it forces them to watch the ball, hit the racket, and then you can go into the other things. And the other thing I think would be a great change to see. Right now, everybody hits this huge topspin overhand. So did Borg, but he did it with a racket the size of a spoon.
He did. Well, continental grips don't exist anymore. For anybody that doesn't follow tennis and know what a continental grip is, just look it up. It's a different way to hit the ball, but it's a handshake, right? So on mine, I wish I had my tennis racket down here, but I don't.
It's a grip I used. You hold the racket like this, and you serve. You play your backhand and forehand with one grip.
Right. Where most people are using a semi-western, which is what I use, which is more over the top because you can swing this way and get more backspin.
Your hand is underneath, and you come up and over it, and but they can develop so much. I mean, you look at Nadal.
The springs that they use are crazy. And in a continental grip, if you used a continental grip today,
you never touch the ball.
Not only would you not touch the ball, if you did, you'd break your wrist.
Probably.
You can't hit the ball straight on with how hard people are hitting it back at this point.
I think the last great player to use a continental grip was Stefan Edberg, and that was back in the early 90s. And he won a couple Wimbledons, and was the last true serve and volleyer. You'll still see it in doubles. The Bryan brothers are amazing players, but it's
different game.
It's a different game. So
it's sad. It really is sad to see what's happened. And you and I have complained about it for a long time because I do like watching tennis. I grew up watching Agassi and Sampras play, and those were some of the best matches I've ever seen. Agassi was very much a serve and volley. Could sit on the base, but he'd come up to the net when he had to. And Pete Sampras, one of the greatest grass players, if not the greatest grass player of all time, really made the one-handed backhand famous.
Yes, he did. Well, and he switched.
He had to.
He was actually a two-hander well into his junior career, and then switched to one-hander and developed one of the best one-handed backhands I've ever seen.
What's even more impressive, he switched when he was a pro.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't switch when he was a junior. He was a two-handed backhand for the first year or two of his career, and then switched to a one-handed backhand and completely changed his game. I mean, just who does that? That just shows to his greatness and hard work. Imagine how many swings he had to take. It must have been like the Rocky scene where he was trying to teach him to be a righty. Just tying the arm down and just go.
It had to be frustrating, but he did it, and he dominated. The great question from when you were a kid, who's better? Agassi, who has 8 Grand Slams, but won on all four surfaces. The Australian and the U.S. Open are basically hard courts. Wimbledon is grass. French Open is a very slow red clay. He won on all of those.
Correct.
Pete Sampras didn't.
Correct. Which means Agassi's a better player.
It's a big thing. The hole in John McEnroe's career is he never won the French when he could have.
Which means he cannot be considered one of the greatest of all time. In my opinion, you have to win on all 4 to be the greatest of all time. But I think that if you take Nadal and put him in the competition that was there, say equipment's equal, right? Pretend everything's equal on that side of things. You just look at pure competition. If you put Rafa Nadal in the late 80s, early 90s with that competition, I still think he wins all those French Opens. I do. I still think he wins 8 or 9 French Opens because he's the best clay player of all time.
It would have been a great match to see him going against Agassi, against Michael Chang, who could run down everything for hours and hours and hours.
He never wins Wimbledon. Never in a million years.
I don't think so. Not
Nadal
against Sampras.
won Wimbledon because Djokovic was out and Federer was hurt.
Well, and
That's why
Federer-
he won Wimbledon.
And Federer won the French because Nadal was out.
Correct.
So
Correct. And that's in that same breath. I don't know if Federer ever wins the French if number one, Nadal doesn't get hurt, and number two, with that type of competition. It's sad to see, but again, it's because it's not entertaining to watch.
it's not.
In America, you have no Americans coming up to cheer for. And honestly, the women's game is much more entertaining because it is more a serve and volley game still, because the power isn't as strong. It gives the chances for these great players to come up to the net and make some plays. And speaking of, so some news has been had.
Hold on, one thing. I'm still going to say, and this will be the last thing I'll say on tennis, the all-around greatest tennis player to have ever lived is still the guy who won 2 Grand Slams against some of the best competition ever, and that's Rod Laver.
Rod Laver won all his Grand Slams on one surface.
Oh, he did.
He won on grass.
He won on grass. I still think
He never played on clay.
He played. Oh, of
Or he
course
did play on clay. He never played on hard court. Hard court wasn't.
I was just trying to come in. He won back-to-back. I mean, he won 2 Grand Slams. Nobody's done that since. Nobody's come close.
Right.
So I'm just.
Because they have to play on 4 surfaces now.
He would have
instead of
been.
2.
He would have won on hard court had it been there.
He might have.
Grass during that time was a much different game than it is now, and I'll argue that it was playing on hard court would have been much easier than playing on grass because the bounces were just uneven. But anyways,
But
I
he
digress.
Didn't do that.
Because it wasn't there. He won.
I'm not saying it's his fault.
I'm just saying. I'm taking the guy who won 2 Grand Slams
You're
over anybody
probably
else.
right. I'm sure he would have won on all 4 surfaces, but he didn't.
Stop.
I'm just saying.
Go on to your.
Just saying. Well, I hope that's not the last thing you have to say on tennis, because
No,
I
it
do
won't
have
be.
something else that I want to talk about. Serena and Venus. It sounds like they're not going to be in Wimbledon this year, which means it's probably the end of an era for 2 of the greatest tennis players, men or women, of all time. Serena will walk away with 23, one shy of tying the record for most Grand Slams of all time. She has to be the most dominant tennis player I've ever seen, men or women. I mean, she is so fun to watch. I loved her attitude on the court, very John McEnroe-ish attitude, but yet just had so much pride in the game. You could see so much love for the game. Just worked so hard.
She was a class act, and actually, she's a 6-foot player.
Oh,
gorgeous. I don't blame her for doing the modeling because she is that beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy because she's that beautiful, but she's built like a linebacker. I can't imagine coming up to the net. She is just an imposing figure, and
she played an all-court game though. I mean, she could play the baseline.
Awesome.
She could come in. Her serve was dominant, and you had Venus, who is about 1.5 to 2 years ahead of Serena in development. And she won her Grand Slams early.
She did.
They were an unbelievable doubles team. Nobody could touch them. Probably the best siblings to have ever played any sport.
Probably. And before we get into that, do you think that we will ever see dominance like that again? Because the women's game is not like the men's game. There are a lot of talented female players out there, and the talent pool in the female game is very, very strong. And yet, with that strong competition, Serena dominated everybody. Do you think we will ever see anything like that in any sport ever again?
Yes. And I think we'll see it in tennis because you look at the history of the game from my lifetime. You had Chris Everett, who dominated. You had Billie Jean King, who also dominated. Then it was Martina, who took the game to a whole new level. Not only the game on the court, she was a serve and volleyer, but fitness-wise, she transformed her body and got to be from where she was when she first came out to where she was in the 80s.
Doesn't she have like 350-something titles?
Something crazy like that. She was the best doubles player before the Williams sisters came in. And then we went Steffi Graf, who was another dominant player with a different kind of game. She was an all-court game, had a great forehand, great backhand. And then the Venus Williams came along with Serena. There will be another dominant women's player. I don't know if you'll see it in. I don't think people care enough about men's tennis anymore.
No, I think it's an interesting sport because it's the one sport where I think the women's game is getting better than the men's game. And it's funny because you don't have the same amount of power. The men are just hitting this ball across the baseline. It's like watching ping
Paint
pong.
dry.
I mean, it's boring. I don't like to watch it. Where the women's game, you're hitting drop shots. You're seeing people run to the net and then running back. It
It's
I mean,
what tennis for the
it's
men's
an
used to be.
athletic game
Yes.
at that point, rather than just running back and forth. And the only thing that's interesting is to watch how people don't snap their legs in half with stopping on hard court.
And they don't. I mean,
They do, because I did, and it hurt.
yes, you did. And that was a hard one to take you to the hospital that night. But I want tennis to come back. It's my favorite sport of all time.
It's never going to come back. I mean,
Until
it's
they
there in the
change.
women's game.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's when the car accident took away tennis from me for the rest of my life. I
Right.
can't play anymore.
Right.
That hurt more than anything else you can imagine.
You know what hurt more than anything I can imagine? Is the fact that you walked away from tennis, because I have yet to beat you on a tennis court.
You never will.
I was finally getting better and getting to the point where I actually was winning sets against you.
But you never.
And then
beat
you
me
get
in
in
a
that
match.
stupid car accident.
Hey, don't blame me. I didn't blame the guy who hit me.
And
by
now,
the way, your brother
you
has a-
can't do it. You're as bad as my grandmother, who beat me in dominoes the last time before she passed away, and now I can't have the dominoes championship anymore. You are the same people.
and your brother never beat me either. Just for the record.
I know. That it was all an act, folks. All an act. He planned that because he knew I was
Oh,
getting
yeah.
too good.
I planned getting hit by a drunk driver. Yes, I definitely planned that.
But I think the big thing is rolling back, and let us know what you think in the comments below. If you think rolling back the tennis rackets to take away power from these players would make it a better game and would make it more interesting for you to watch. Let us know in the comments below. And while you are down there, don't forget to do this for me. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time we drop a new video, so you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it. I think it is time for us to get into golf, because some big news is happening with the Live tournament that apparently isn't called the Live tournament, so I
54.
apologize. It's Roman numerals for 54. How dare I?
Everybody's calling it the Live tournament.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that.
Nope, not at all, but I'm going to keep calling it the Live tournament.
Let's do it.
Because it sounds cooler than the 54 tournament. Dustin Johnson walks away from the PGA Tour.
Kevin Na walked away.
Kevin Na walked away.
Sergio Garcia's walked away. For what?
I don't know, but there's an interesting letter here from Phil Mickelson talking about walking away from the game on the PGA Tour. First and foremost, I want to apologize to many people I offended and hurt with my comments a few months ago. I've made mistakes. You can read this, blah, 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 blah. I'm ready to come back and play the game I love. After 32 years, this new path is a fresh start, one that is exciting for me. And it goes on and on to finally say I am thrilled to begin with the 54 golf, or with 54 golf. And I appreciate everyone involved. And again, it goes on.
In other words, he got paid a lot of money, guaranteed, and he's not going to go and try to compete against golfers who are not guaranteed money when they tee it up every week.
They're not.
This tournament, they're going to play 54 holes. Seniors play 54 holes.
They do.
They are going to have some convoluted team event, which sounds like we're doing one of the silly season events, as they used to call that period, November, December.
Right.
Dustin Johnson reportedly got $125 million.
Yeah.
They offered, rumor has it that they offered Tiger close to $1 billion to do it. And Tiger told them in no uncertain terms, I'm out.
Yeah, Tiger can't be bought. His legacy is too important to him at this point.
Correct. I mean,
especially the PGA stuck with him through everything.
They did. And Tiger very much measures himself against two people. Arnie for the marketing.
Yep.
Jack for the titles, but also how both those guys carried themselves on the course.
Yep.
And the respect they had for the game. And Tiger, like him or not, and I respect the heck out of him for coming back and turning his life around. He respects the game.
Yeah.
And he wants, and most of the guys, Rory McIlroy has come out against the Live tournament, going, "What are you doing?" The PGA Tour has given all of these guys a very good living.
They have, and the PGA Tour has made it clear that they are not going to allow these guys to play in PGA events anymore. I mean, these guys had to resign from the PGA Tour. They're no longer PGA members. Sergio Garcia also walked away and has resigned from the PGA
Which
Tour.
means he loses the Ryder Cup, which is what he
Justin.
loved more than anything
And Justin
else.
Johnson, losers of the Ryder Cup as well. I don't think it means as much to Phil Mickelson at this point in his career. However, he'll never get to be a captain.
His legacy is gone. I mean, will he be allowed to be one of the ceremonial guys that hits the first shot at the Masters?
No, it's all gone.
It's
It's
gone.
all gone. The legacy's gone. It's done. Can bridges be mended? Yeah, but the 54 golf live tournament, whatever we want to call it, needs to be gone for that to happen.
Well, and here's where I come down on it. So this thing is being funded by the Saudi Arabians, who treat women horribly, have got human rights violations up the wazoo. They're not good people that they're associated with as far as everything I've heard. And you're getting in bed with people just because they're paying you a lot of money. And I'm not sure that's a good reason to do it. These guys are all millionaires anyways.
Right. I mean, take it away from the oil money in Saudi. I mean, I'm sure there's good Saudis out there.
Oh, of course there are.
But take it away from that, and I don't know. It's a legacy thing. You have to make that decision. If I'm Dustin Johnson, I mean, I have no issues making this decision. If I'm Sergio Garcia, maybe, because you have to think about your legacy. Phil Mickelson, you've ruined your legacy now. Who was the other guy?
Kevin Na.
Kevin Na. I mean,
he's been told, a couple guys have gone up and said good riddance. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, bye.
And that's the problem I have with this. Yeah, they're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. I get it. They're financially set for whatever.
Right.
But it's not what I think of when I think of golf.
It's not. And I think the most surprising thing that you said on here, which I think is going to be the most impactful, is the Ryder Cup. Dustin Johnson, obviously a huge fan of the Ryder Cup. And when he was asked about it, about his decision, if it was a big one, it was, but hopefully all things are subject to change and we'll be able to participate. If it doesn't, then it was another thing that I've really had to think long and hard about. And ultimately, I decided to come do this and play out here. And like I said, I'm excited about it. Obviously, the Ryder Cup is unbelievable, and it's definitely meant a lot to me. And I'm proud to say that I've played and represented my country, and hopefully I get a chance to do this again. But I don't make the rules, and that is directly from a quote from Yahoo Sports article. I just don't. I don't think they're going to bend on that. I think this is the last time we've seen Sergio and Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson a part of the Ryder Cup.
There's going to be lawsuits. This will end up in court. And what they're trying to do is somehow break up the PGA.
Right.
And I don't think
they've resigned from the PGA Tour, and the Ryder Cup is a PGA event.
So
you have no right to be there. There's no lawsuit to be had. You resigned from the PGA Tour. You're done.
They're going to try to sue. And I think you're going to have to allow them in the majors because they're
PGA events.
I still think because they're open.
They're PGA Tour events.
They're open. The British Open's obviously ran by the RNA. It's going to be, that's where the conversation is going to take place. If you're going to go and play in this rogue tournament, which is really what it is, it's a rogue event.
They're going to have to play as amateurs.
I just don't see them being, I mean,
they're going to have to play under amateur status because they don't have a PGA card.
Well, and they can't play under amateur status because they are professionals. So there will be a lawsuit in here. Make no mistake.
I could see the Opens where they say it's an open tournament. I could see those still being a part of it.
Masters,
PGA Championship, you won't be there.
No, the Masters, they won't invite you.
No, you have to be invited, and you're not going to be invited to the Masters. It's a PGA Tour event. You're not going to be invited to that event. So, yes, the Open maybe. The Ryder Cup, that's completely a PGA event.
President's Cup is another one.
President's Cup, PGA event.
They gave up. There's a dollar, obviously, in those people's eyes, there's a dollar amount they can put on their legacy.
Sure.
And they put it out there. Am I going to watch this thing? I really don't have a big desire to watch the event. Well, if it's on TV, I don't even know where it's on TV, but Will I flip through it if I see it? Maybe for a couple minutes. But
Who knows? Maybe it takes off and it's an actual competition to the PGA Championship.
well, it's like the USFL back in the day. They were trying to take
Right.
on the NFL. It got settled. Personally, I would rather watch the American Family Champions Tour event that's taking place this weekend in Madison.
Right.
Which,
I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of people come from like the Corn Ferry tournament. Isn't that what it's called? The step before the
something
PGA.
like that.
They'll probably go into the 54 golf tournaments, live tournaments. I don't know what to call it. I'm sure you'll see some of those guys go, but it's
Well, for the guaranteed money, yeah. If I'm a
Yeah.
Corn Ferry guy and I don't think I'm ever going to make it to the PGA Tour, then maybe I would. But don't forget, if you give up on the PGA Tour, you're also giving up on the Champions Tour.
Yep.
Which, for a lot of those guys, that's a whole second career.
It is. We'll see what happens. I think it's time for us to move into some questions. I do have some questions again for you today that I
Fine.
wanted to get your opinion on. Again, I do not prep him on these.
Yeah.
And so these are my own fun things. We are going to
blindside
put
me
it on a
with.
timeline, which obviously we don't follow. But when it's time to move on, you will hear this noise here, which means it is time to move on to the next question. Are you ready, sir?
Let's do this.
Perfect. First question. We have something special that has happened, which is Aaron Donald just got an extension with a $95 million contract, which isn't even really an extension. It's just a rework of his current deal through 2024. Essentially, the rework of the deal gives him $65 million for 1 year. It's really a $65 million 1 year contract. Is this something that we are going to start to see with older players? Short-term contracts with massive amounts of money and options for the second year.
With the amount of television money coming under the new contract, yes, there's going to be more money in football than we even realize.
This is an insane amount. I mean, it is 1 year, $65 million deal with a $30 million option for Aaron Donald to either retire or come back and get paid guaranteed $30 million if he's on the opening day roster. I mean, essentially, he just was given an option for $95 million guaranteed. He could break his foot in training camp, and that man is getting paid $65 million to sit on a sideline.
He can do something that very, 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 very few people in the world can do.
Yes. Oh, he earns every penny for this.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Aaron Donald has earned everything. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time.
Absolutely.
That's just a big, big number. So I guess you are saying that, yes, we will see more
We'll
of this
see this
going on
again.
to the future. Perfect. Apparently, I broke the button. Let's try that again. All right, it's going to sound different now, I guess. Jimmy G has just been excused from mandatory mini camp, which probably means the 49ers are going to trade him. Do you think that Jimmy Garoppolo will start for an NFL franchise this upcoming season?
Yes, I do. I think he ends up maybe in Carolina, maybe in Seattle. Who knows? But he is a winner. He wins wherever he goes. So I think he's going to be on an opening day roster and starting the season for somebody.
I think Seattle is a great choice for him. I don't believe the 49ers will trade him within division by any stretch of the
I
imagination.
think Baker Mayfield will be in Seattle.
I don't think I've said my opinion on Baker
I know.
Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is not leaving the Cleveland Browns this year.
Well, and
I think Baker Mayfield will start a game for the Cleveland Browns in the 2022 season.
I think you may be right because Deshaun Watson is never going to play in the NFL again.
I don't think he does. More and more is coming, and it's insane. And his lawyer
He buried him.
has not done him
No.
any favors at all.
If you haven't seen the story, the lawyer came out and basically said that getting a massage with a happy ending is legal. No, it's not. It's called prostitution. And Deshaun Watson is if there was one or two, maybe, but there's 24. There's a lot of smoke to go with that fire, and I just think it's a
Yeah, this isn't the
awful human
isn't the
being.
Jameis Winston thing when he was in college where
Right.
hey, there might be something here where this isn't exactly what it seems like. There's a lot out there on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I've made my opinion clear on this in previous shows. I don't think he ever plays it down in the NFL.
I don't think so either, and I don't think he should. He's just, from all the news that's out there, a despicable human being.
Sure sounds like it, but Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he goes to an AFC team.
I can see that.
I could. Speaking of Jameis, I could see him going to the Saints if something happens to Jameis Winston. I know it's not AFC, but it just popped into my head.
I could see him going to there to compete with Winston. I just think he's going to be gone before the start of the season, and so New Orleans won't have a chance at him.
Right.
I don't know where that magic place will be, but it'll be with a contender because I think he'll make a difference.
Could it be the Lions?
Jared Goff versus Jimmy G. Which one would you rather have?
Jared Goff.
There's your answer. I think I would too.
Only because he seems to have really bought into the Dan Campbell system, and that's what you want from your quarterback.
So where do you think in the AFC you could see him going? He's obviously not going to New England or Buffalo.
I could see him in Cleveland.
See him with the
Pittsburgh,
Giants.
with the Giants. Yeah.
There's
a couple different places. I agree. I think he does start somewhere in the NFL this year. I could see him still starting in San Francisco. But I think the Niners excusing him from the mandatory minicamp has meant they have moved on, and they're going to see.
They're going to see what they've got with Lance.
Right. Tell me this. Is this news or not news? Rays players refuse to wear the Pride logo. Is that the right decision?
I think they have every right to say no to that if it's against what they believe in. Look, here's my take on this. People can go and live their lives any way they want to. I think nobody has. Some people do, but the majority of Americans have no problem. If you're gay, go and live your life and be happy. Be true to yourself. Build a family if you want. Go and live your life. But don't force us to go the extra step and say, yeah, not only are we good with it, we're going to come out and we're going to celebrate you. I think we've gone too far. And I think, I have no problem with the pride parades and the fact that the team wants to do it. But I think individual players have the right to say, yeah, we're not going to wear these. It's against what we believe in.
I agree. You know me. I believe in human rights. I mean, every married couple should have the same thing. Every single person should have the same opportunities. That's what makes America great, right? But people have a choice. I mean, would I wear it? Sure. What do I care? Like, whatever. It's a pretty cool logo. But I understand why some players don't, and that needs to be okay. I don't think it's news. I don't think it should have been a story at all. These guys aren't protesting. They're still playing the games. They just said, you know what? I'm gonna pass on this one.
Right.
And I think that's perfectly okay.
And I don't think if they've got a gay teammate, which they might, I don't think they treat them badly. I just don't think that they feel they have to wear the logo on top of it.
They made a decision. It's up to them. I think from my opinion, it's been way overblown and shouldn't have been the news that it is. Going on, I have changed my opinion on this. Baseball needs to change their playoff format from 2-3-2 to 2-2-1-1-1.
I do as well. In this day of easy travel, they all have private planes. I think the 2-3-2 gives the home team, the one with the 4 games, such an advantage that I do think you go to the 2-3-1-1-1 or whatever it is.
I agree. I used to be super against that. I used to love the 2-3-2 format. I thought it was the best thing in the world, especially watching basketball now more. I love the 2-2-1-1-1 format. I think you're right. It's so hard to ask an away team essentially to say, hey, in order for you to have these games at home, you have to go win 3 in a row. That's a lot to ask. And I think it makes it a little less entertaining. Like you said, it gives a huge advantage because all you have to do is take care of home, right? So you're telling the home team, you just got to win back-to-back games twice. And you're telling the away team that you have to win 3 in a row plus take one of the other games on the road.
And I think asking any team, and the playoffs don't start until somebody wins on the road.
Right.
But to have the 2-3-2 to say, okay, you've got to win those 3 in a row to even be close to staying in it. If the home team wins the first 2, I just think, I mean, look at the Tampa Rangers or Islanders series.
Right.
Rangers series.
Rangers, sorry.
Rangers swept at home.
Yep.
Tampa came back, and with 46 seconds left.
Dude, that was such a good game.
Oh, my God, that was so much fun to watch.
That was such a good game.
I mean, Tampa came back, and it gets down to the last minute of the game, and they score the winner.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the next one. Sorry, Canada, your team is eliminated.
The Edmonton Oilers have been swept. They will have to go another year without a Stanley Cup in Canada. It'll be an interesting series. I think the Rangers Lightning series is going to go down to the wire. And I agree, it's made it more exciting because, hey, you know what? The Rangers won 2 on the road. Tampa Bay doesn't have to win 3 games in a row. They have to win the next 2.
They have to win the next game at home.
And then all of a sudden, the Rangers win at home. Lightning win at home. It's 1 game.
1 game, and who knows? I mean, it'll be in New York. And
still, at that point in Game 7, it doesn't make a difference where it is. It's Game 7. It's 1 game.
Back in the day when travel was more difficult, when they were flying commercial, which they actually did at one point,
right.
different story at that
Agreed.
point. Now they have private jets, very comfortable to travel.
Yeah, baseball needs to go to a 2-2-1-1-1 format rather than the 2-3-2 format. I agree.
They
Aaron
also need not have all the teams that are going to be in the playoffs in the playoffs.
I broke my button, and I don't know how. But Aaron Rodgers back in Green Bay for mandatory OTAs. Is this news or not news?
No. He showed up for a mandatory minicamp. He's there. He's still the leader of the team. Rodgers is a great teammate from everything we hear.
Yeah.
He's the leader of the team. And, as Packer fans, I'm hoping, was it big news that the New England quarterback or that the Patrick Mahomes showed up for a mandatory OTA? No. It's what you do.
I think this shows a lot of maturity on Rodgers' side, honestly, because it's like, all right, he held out last year because he was upset.
Yeah.
And then he got what he wanted.
And so
now he's here.
And he missed a voluntary OTA so he could play in the golf tournament.
Right.
Fine.
Honestly, if I'm the Packers organization, I say, we're going to work with the rookies. We don't need you here for 1 day and then you to disappear to the golf course. Like, go play your match, go make your money doing that, and then come back for mandatory and we'll figure it out then. So, yeah, I agree. Not news at all. Moving on to the next question. Romeo Cornell, one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time, is retiring from the NFL. Should he go into the Hall of Fame as an assistant coach?
No. Assistants go in the Hall of Fame.
Should they?
No.
I disagree.
I'm sure you do. And I'm sure you've researched this 20 different ways and have your arguments, even though I've just heard the question for the first time.
Yeah, because that's how I prepare. I gave you this question beforehand.
Look,
I gave you this question. Don't start. I gave you this question before the show.
Until just now,
I gave it to you 24 hours ago. You had time to prepare, and you didn't.
You blindsided
so that's
me
not
again.
my fault.
Oh, it is because you just telling me when I'm actually sleeping. Hey, I'm going to ask you this. That's not giving me time to prepare. But here's my answer to it. Vince Lombardi had Phil Bankston as defensive coordinator. Packers had one of the greatest defenses of all time in the 60s. Does Phil Bankston belong in the Hall of Fame?
Yep.
No, he doesn't.
Does.
No.
He does. He definitely does.
He definitely does.
That's like saying a wide receiver doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because he doesn't throw the ball. To me, it's the same thing. The assistants are specialists. They're very much specialists. Does Adam Vinatieri not belong in the Hall of Fame because he didn't do kickoffs as well?
Many people would say yes.
But he didn't do kickoffs, right? He was a kicker. That was his job. That was his specialty. Should an offensive lineman not go into the Hall of Fame because he's only supposed to do offensive line?
A lot of them. Look at Jerry Kramer. He didn't get in for decades.
Should a linebacker not go into the Hall of Fame because he only focuses on the defensive side of the ball?
No, because that's what they do. This is just
because they're a specialist. Should a cornerback not go in the Hall of Fame because he only focuses on blocking one player?
No, but an assistant coach who takes his direction from the head coach, the only person I will give a pass to and say maybe he should be in the Hall of Fame is Buddy Ryan, because he was an assistant head coach for the 85 Bears. Ditka
One of the greatest defensive coaches of all time.
Yes.
You look at Wade Phillips.
Ditka was not allowed in the defensive room. That was Buddy's defense. Maybe he should be in. Wade Phillips was an outstanding defensive coordinator, but no, he never got it done as a head coach. He doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame.
To me, I think that you should be held to the same standards as players are, which is if you're a defensive coordinator and your job is to focus solely on the defense, you don't have to play both ways in the NFL to get into the Hall of Fame. If you're a defensive player, your job is to focus on the defense. If you're a defensive coordinator, your job is to focus on the defense. And if you're so good that you constantly have a top 10 defense throughout your entire career, you should be recognized for that and be put in the Hall of Fame. Wade Phillips, how many times did he have number one offenses? Most of his career, he had a top 10 offense. I think he didn't have a top 10 offense twice in his career. Why would he not be in the Hall of Fame for that? Clearly, he's proven to be one of the greatest offensive minds of our time.
Because the head coaches are the ones that choose the defense they're going to play, and theoretically, then the assistants follow the lead of the head coach. The head coach is the one that deserves the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry.
Bill Belichick doesn't call the plays. Other people call the plays. Bill Belichick has nothing to do with the offense.
Bill Belichick coordinates everything we do with that team. And he belongs
in the Hall of Fame. I'm not denying that. However, Romeo Cornell is the reason some of those Super Bowl team won. I think he won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots and 2 with the Giants as a defensive coordinator.
As assistants move around a lot more to try to become a head coach. Wade Phillips had a head coaching job a couple times.
It didn't work out.
Do well.
That wasn't what he was good at, right? He was too much of a player. I think, and I don't know Wade Phillips. You have to ask NFL players, right? But from what I've heard and read, he was too much of a player's coach to make those hard decisions when it came to time as a head coach. However, you give him the reins of just running the offense and letting somebody else run that ship, he's one of the best there ever is and was, and he does belong in the Hall of Fame for that. Assistants 100% below it. Again, why does Darrell Reavis get in the Hall of Fame? He was never a wide receiver. He never had to worry about the offense. He only had to focus on what he did on the defense, and not only what he did on just one thing. He had to focus on one play.
You can't compare players with the assistant coaches.
You can, because Romeo Cornell designed the scheme. Wade Phillips designed the scheme. Buddy Ryan, like you said, the 85 Bear defense, the greatest defense of all time, was Buddy Ryan's defense.
He was an assistant head. He was essentially another head coach. The Bears operated with a two-headed monster during that.
Correct, but yet Mike Ditka's in the Hall of Fame for winning the 85 Super Bowl because he only focused on the offense.
Mike Ditka is in the Hall of Fame because he was a Hall of Fame tight end, not because of his coaching.
He's also in there as a coach. Mike Ditka is known as one of the best coaches for the 85 Bears, yet Buddy Ryan was in charge of that defense.
Yeah, assistants don't go in the Hall of Fame.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. I strenuously disagree and think that there should be a strenuously. I had to hold that one in because I was upset.
Along those lines, let me ask you this. Of all the people, all the head coaches that have been around there,
yes,
which head coach has the best coaching tree? Bill Parcells, you've got Bill Belichick for sure. Not many others, but yeah.
Romeo Cornell came from that tree as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you have to look at Bill Walsh. I mean, Holmgren came from there, and you saw what Holmgren spun off from him with Gruden and Mariucci.
You can actually go back to Paul Brown because I think he started with. I think Bill Walsh worked with Paul Brown.
It depends if you give the former coach the credit for the other coach's tree. You know, do you give Bill Walsh credit for Mike Holmgren's tree? Because if that's the case, then it's Bill Walsh. I think it is funny, though, if you look at Vince Lombardi and Bill Belichick, who are known as two of the greatest coaches of all time, 1 and 1A, nobody came off of those trees at all.
No,
they ran that ship.
They were a giant tree with no branches.
Yep, this is my ship.
Yes.
And this is my way.
And this is only my way. And both of those guys, both of them dominated their team so much that the assistants never really got a chance to spread their wings. Phil Bankston took over from Lombardi when he retired and then went to Washington.
Right.
And was a disaster. So I think
look at Sean McVay. Sean McVay's tree is getting to be amazing, and it's because Sean McVay just lets his assistants do what his assistants are going to do. and makes them a part of the process and lets them own something on that team. And that's what makes people better. But back to the original argument of assistants belong in the Hall of Fame.
If
you are that good of an assistant,
you'll become a head coach and go in the Hall of Fame that way.
Different. Just because you're a great wide receiver doesn't mean you'll be a great quarterback. It's like saying Jerry Rice isn't one of the greatest players of all time because he didn't throw to himself.
He was hired to do one job, and they coordinated very well.
Assistants are hired to do one job.
They don't belong in the Hall of Fame.
You don't take away Buddy Ryan's accomplishments on what he could do on the defensive side of the ball because he struggled as a head coach.
Apparently, you're in the minority on that, or they would have been in the Hall of Fame.
Well, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Should assistants be in the Hall of Fame for being the greatest at their position?
And if you agree with me, which you should,
no,
let us know that as well.
I disagree.
That is right again. It gets redundant, but I love seeing it. Any other blind sides?
I don't know why this button's not working. Last question I have for you. John Gruden's going to be suing the NFL, and it's going to get ugly in a hurry. Will this be the end of Roger Goodell?
He's going to take down Roger Goodell and every person he possibly can. He is going to torch the NFL if he can, and he may win.
All 650,000 of those emails will be shown at this point to the public. That's what I don't understand to this day. Is why did Gruden get scapegoated?
I don't know.
Why did Gruden's get leaked and nobody else's emails get leaked?
And why were they trying to take down Gruden? He is the leak. Just from everything everybody's saying, the man doesn't have a racist bone in his body.
Right.
I just don't know. There's a backstory there, and Goodell knows the story, and Gruden has him in his scope.
He was 100% scapegoated.
Yes.
And I've been confused since day one this leaked. When first Gruden leaked, I was like, oh, here comes more.
And that never was.
And there was nothing.
Schneider's going to go down.
That's not the only football player, former football player, football coach, I'm sure, that talks like that.
Schneider's going to go down, even if he's not
Snyder's
an owner
going
anymore.
down anyways.
Right,
I mean, that dude, he just got in trouble for skimming off the top on games against other NFL teams. I can't believe he still owns the team at this point. He should be fired just for the Commander's name. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
No
and
argument.
again, a new owner needs to come in and change the name to something else because it's a dumb name. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be long and drawn out.
It's going to be ugly. It's going to be real ugly for the NFL. Because this, as you said, 650,000 emails are going to be combed through.
Right.
And here's going to be the real interesting thing to me. Which journalists are going to just cover this fairly and really not take a side on it and let the chips fall where they may? Because a lot of the media are opinion makers at this point.
I mean, let me ask you this question. Was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial covered by anybody fairly? Or were there clear sides in every single article? I mean, I think that's your answer. Whatever your answer is to that question is the answer to this one. It's going to get ugly. I just don't understand. You went after John Gruden, who worked as a coach.
Was the best analyst.
Worked as an analyst for ESPN.
Best one since John Madden.
And has been a part of this league and knows a lot of people, has talked to a lot of people, and probably knows the most amount of dirt of anybody.
He knows where the skeletons are hidden.
And that's the guy you went after. And you didn't really have a lot on him. You had him using not so great language in emails. It's not like Deshaun Watson where he did something horrible to another human being. This is just him not talking the way people prefer people to talk.
Again, it's a cancel culture going after him for words and not what's in his heart. I don't believe Gruden, from everything I've heard, treats every player, doesn't care what color they are. If you're the best player, you're going to be on the field.
Right. And is there room for language like that in a professional setting? No. But it's words. I mean, it's just words.
I think there's a difference between locker room settings and the boardroom. I
agree. And you could argue that some of those emails were sent in a boardroom setting. But again, he got scapegoated in a way I don't understand, and it will be interesting to see what comes out from
I hope they televise the trial.
Oh, dude, I can't do another Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, man. I got so sucked into that garbage.
I know. I
regret it. I wasted weeks of my life on that thing. I can't do it again.
It was better than any other kind of TV show.
Well, you have 2 A-list actors in reality television, and it was...
And Johnny Depp came out on top.
They both are terrible people.
I know. Well, so you say.
Okay, they're not terrible. I don't think Johnny Depp's a terrible person. Johnny Depp does a lot of amazing things for people.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. Both of them were at faults for different parts of that. Do I think the outcome turned out the way it should have? I do. But
I think it was a toxic marriage.
It was a toxic marriage and this should have never happened. They should have just walked away and everything would have been fine. I got so sucked in. I regret it. My wife made fun of me
as well
for weeks. I'd make dinner and be watching the clips on this thing. She's like, "Are you watching that trash?" And I'd just be like, "Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I can't
honestly,
help it."
I've seen too many divorces where it becomes so personal between the husband and wife. The kids get taken down by it, and I just disagree with it completely.
Right.
It didn't work out. You're divorced.
What I took away from it is there was very much a power struggle in that marriage. And the power struggle continued on a very public level afterwards and got to where it was. But again, I think you'll see a lot of that in this trial. And again, I don't want to be a part of it because I will watch it and it'll be a waste of my time and I don't want to see it.
Okay.
But I think we've had a fun show today. I appreciate you guys tuning in before we head out. Any last words?
Yes.
Is this going to be out of the blue again?
Yeah, completely.
All right, cool.
Completely, just so you know.
This is why I don't tell you every question, because at least I get my payback a little bit for this right here.
You do. So I went down a YouTube trail. Stumbled on a Michael Caine video.
I like Michael Caine.
I do too. A lot.
Great. One of the best Scrooges of all time.
And certainly in the top 3 in my book. So, and we will have that conversation closer to Christmas of our rankings.
Muppets Christmas Carol.
Great.
Number 1.
He did a reading of Rudyard Kipling's poem, If.
It was easy for you to say.
Yeah, I know. Great poem. I'm going to read part of it. This is just the last paragraph. You should go back and read the whole thing. But if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but not too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. It's a great poem.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. It's a great poem. It's just about how to be a good human being and what's important. And the line about if you're a giant in like Johnny Depp, you're a giant in the industry, but you can still have the common touch. Like when he went to the children's hospital dressed up as Jack Sparrow.
To stop a mutiny?
Whatever.
You haven't heard that story?
Yes, I have, but I'm just saying that
you got a letter from a fan saying he wanted to have a mutiny at the hospital, and he came in and talked to the kid about why a mutiny is a bad idea.
But he was in his Jack Sparrow outfit.
He was?
And he made the kid's day. And that means he's still got a common touch, no matter what his other issues are. So that's my closing thought for today.
I like it. That was great. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate you watching. And before you head out of here, do me a favor. Don't forget to do this right here, which is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show just as much as we enjoy making it. I almost forgot my last line there. We really do appreciate you tuning in. Please give us some topics you want us to talk about. I'll keep surprising him with questions and throwing him off guard just to win arguments, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, maybe to throw me off a little bit too. Thank you again. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.